Welcome to another episode of the Limitless Life Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Smith. And if you have not done so, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another podcast. And if you love this podcast and you want some more tips and tricks on how to improve yourself, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. There are a ton of instructional videos there. You can find the links down below. But for today, my friends, my guest is me. I am the guest today. Today is the 50th episode of the Limitless Life Podcast, which was formerly known as the Warrior Bod Pod. So if you go back and you listen to a couple of the older episodes, that's why there's a change in the name. Now, why did I call it the Limitless Life episode? Because the folks that I'm chatting with have developed or created a life that has meaning to them. They are living a life of joy and fulfillment. They're keeping up with kindness. They are folks that I personally find to be contributing to the human race as a whole. And that is something that I find to be very, very important. There's so many people in the world that just can be the kindness that they wish to receive. So what we're going to do today for the 50th episode is we're going to go through a couple of the lessons I got. I'm not going to go through all 50. That's like absolutely ridiculous. And I wouldn't want to see how long that would really take. But I have a couple snippets. Now, every time I listen or record an episode, I record it as the host. I'm being present there. I'm in the moment. And then when I'm finished with it, I always listen to it again, and I take it from the frame of being the guest. Now, I say guest when someone's listening to a podcast because the way I like to have it, or my favorite podcasts at least, involve being more so a fly on the wall for a conversation. Now, I definitely partake in the podcasts that are more academic or more suited towards education. However, the conversations where it feels like I'm sitting, drinking a coffee, chillaxing, and I'm listening to this conversation, and I can envision that I'm there just kind of hanging out with a couple folks that are just having a cool conversation. Those are the conversations that are my favorite. Anyways, this is not a tangent about podcasts and limitless life and all that good stuff. But before I get into the lessons, I just want to say thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate you being here. And it truly is amazing. I'm aiming for 100 episodes in the next chunk of time. At this rate, obviously we're at 50. I'm halfway there. So it's going to be pretty quick. I already got a couple episodes in the queue. But at 100, I'm just going to do the same thing. Going to do a couple of lessons at episode 100 of what I got from the next 50. So I just want to say thank you very much for being here. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for encouraging others to listen. And I hope that you are learning as much as I am in this process. So with that out of the way, my friends, we're going into a lesson by Andrew Coates from episode 30. Don't chase status, chase fulfillment. Oh, now, don't chase status, chase fulfillment. We want to be popular. We want to be liked. We want to be accepted as a whole. As human beings, we're social creatures. We interact together, and the more that we are together, the higher probability of survival we have. So it's something that's in our DNA to be social. And we find that status is the easiest way to get there. And it's been like that forever. So the person with the most status usually has the most resources, or they contribute the most to the tribe as a whole. So it could be wisdom. It could be strength. It could be knowledge. Basically, it's the resolution of discomfort or problems and prevention of aggravating future pain. So if we're chasing fulfillment, those folks that have that form of status are chasing fulfillment. They're being a contribution to the broader space to make the pie bigger as a whole in order for everyone to have a big piece. So when it comes to living a life of fulfillment and joy, we have to have an abundance mindset, or don't have to have, but come from a frame of abundance mindset, or have the abundance perspective. Because if we're not abundant, if we're not willing to give, then we're in a place of resentment. If we're not in a place of infatuation of loving and giving and caring, then we're in a place of resentment, of envy, of ego, of take. So that's very difficult. There's no fulfillment. There's no joy in taking all the time. We expand what we want to do, what we want to accomplish into the larger sum so that we just have a higher probability of achieving it because we have helping hands. And people always want to help. Always. Helping others is actually one of our favorite tools for procrastination. I, for myself, can say that when I've helped folks the most often, it's because I wanted to procrastinate on the thing that I knew was going to help me out myself. I just didn't want to do the tasks. So when someone comes along, hey, can you help me with that? Absolutely can. I suddenly have free time. It's kind of funny how that works. So rather than trying to look good, be good. Be the fulfillment, be the joy, because when we can give it, then we will receive it. It is a two-way street. We're something for how our brains work as well is reciprocation. When we are offered something, we feel the inner desire to reciprocate. That is just something that is normal. It's used in marketing as well. So when someone is given something for free, there is usually the possibility of a reciprocation of whatever. It's an exchange, right? And we can exchange with time and providing fulfillment and joy to the lives of others. And of course, we have to start with ourselves. So that brings me into the next one. This one's by Chris Maxwell from episode 37. He says, your happiness is meant to be designed into your present, not postponed for your future. Wow. Chris, my man, if you're listening to this, I am so grateful for that piece of advice. That is such good wisdom because we're always pushing our happiness to the future. It's never in the present that we're perpetuating happiness. We're always pushing it forward. When this happens, I'll be happy. When it's like this outside, then I'll be happy. There's always a then I'll be happy. This happens first, then I'll be happy. But we don't need to wait until the thing happens in order to be happy. We can find a little bit of happiness. We don't need to have extreme amount of joy and ecstatic emotion behind happiness, but we can insert that happiness and that joy into our day-to-day life. So we don't need to work more now in order to enjoy it later when we can find a way to integrate happiness into the day by participating in activities or ventures that bring us joy. So obviously there's work, but keep in mind that on the average work day is about 8 hours. Obviously there's like 12 and 15s, and sometimes there's even less. There's like 4s. So whatever is the foundation where it is a time frame where you truly do not, you have to allot your time towards taking care of the necessities. That is totally legitimate. But keep in mind that there's 24 hours in a day as a whole. You're getting 8 hours of sleep, and then 6 is pretty decent, but no less than 6. But let's say you're getting 8 hours of sleep, 8-hour workday. You still have, now my math's usually pretty off on this one, but you have another additional 8 hours of other activities where you can do 30 minutes to an hour of exercise. You still have 7 hours remaining. You can watch a Netflix episode with your loved ones. That's another episode. So that's 2 hours out of that, and you have 6 hours remaining. You can implement a series of walking breaks. So if you have 3 20-minute walks per day, that is another hour, but is broken up. So if we're able to find and insert moments or pockets of happiness into our day, then we're able to find more joy in existing. Because keep in mind how we feel today, unless we change things today, we're going to feel very similar tomorrow. It's not going to change unless we do things today. So today is meant to prepare for tomorrow. So if we want a different trajectory, then we got to, come up with a different way to treat the day. So if we are trying to find that happiness and joy in the day, if we're integrating that happiness rather than postponing it to the future, then we find ourselves with a much simpler, easier, or at least more manageable day. It's just a little bit smoother. And when things are smoother, then things can move faster. When we have chaos, then we're going to have chaotic results. And I mean results not in like the sense of fitness and health, but I mean results in anything that you want to aspire for in your life. Okay. So that ties into the next one. I'm just realizing it now, but I feel like there's actually a little bit of a theme going on with these. And this one, oh, such a good time. Always chatting with this fella. His name is Raj Dhillon. And he said, operate 20% slower. And this was episode number 44. Now, we're always in a rush. What are we running for? What are we running towards? We are trying to move so fast that we are forgetting that we are right here. So if we decrease the speed to which we take action, because keep in mind, fast doesn't mean fast. Fast could also mean lack of planning. It could mean tripping over your feet and face planting like a sprinter. It could mean a whole series of things. So if we decrease the speed by 20%, then we're able to take in the environment. We're able to take in the people. We're able to take in the connections, the relationships. We're ultimately able to take the kindness in around us, because I find that there is inherent kindness among the people. They may say like shitty things behind your back, but that's okay. As long as that's fine. That's fine. That is out of your control. But what you can control is what you do in the present. We have control of our actions, our perceptions, and our behaviors. And the more in alignment we are with those controllable factors, the smoother life will be. But it's kind of similar to driving a car. I forget what the exact number is, but when we're driving a car, as it increases past like 100 miles per hour, for example, not 100% sure, you can correct me if I am wrong, but if it's 100 miles per hour and then it goes up a mile per hour each time, there is a higher likelihood of us getting into a car accident because we gain less and less control the faster and faster we go. Okay. So sometimes it's good to ease off and just decrease it by about 20%, take a breath, look around, and make sure that you're actually going in the right direction. Because that's another thing with being fast and being speedy is we may not actually realize we're actually going in the wrong direction as quickly as we possibly can. So that was the lesson from Raj. Operate 20% slower. I love that. Love that one. One of my favorite ones from real early, first top 10. This is from Jody and Denise from episode 4, single digits. These ladies are absolute rock stars. They are rock stars. They're always crushing it at the gym. They're always putting in the work, putting in the effort. It's awesome. It is awesome. And I asked them the question, because they both compete in their late 40s and 50s and early 50s. But I asked them the question, what is it that people get wrong about aging, health, and exercise? Like those little a combination of those. And their coach actually said something that was really awesome. And it was that maintenance is progress. So as we age, we're not going to have more energy. We're not going to have more time because there is an end point. And no matter what we do, there is going to be some form of deterioration in the human body, no matter how fit someone is, no matter how healthy someone is. There will always be some form of deterioration. Our bodies are just organisms. They're organic beings. So over time, there may be a little bit of deterioration going on as we age, and no energy and less energy, and things are just going to fall to the wayside. So what we can maintain going into our age, or many ages, hopefully, that's good. Because if we can keep our knees strong, it doesn't take a lot of effort to keep the knees strong now, or to practice keeping those knees strong now, because we'll already, at that point, 20 years from now, we will find ourselves with stronger knees. So for myself, I have this vision, and it's very like, this is me fear setting. And fear setting is a method of visualizing the worst case scenario in the future so that you understand what you can do in the present to mitigate that future, to hopefully remove it entirely. But I'm really paranoid about my knees. Really paranoid, not in the sense of I can't squat or anything like that. I love squatting. Squatting is the best. Lunging, leg day, hammy curls, leg extensions, bring it on. Love it. I mean, more so like in the future when I'm in my 80s. So I think to myself, okay, Kendra and I are coming out of a movie theater. I go to use the washroom, go into the stall. For whatever reason, my knees are feeling weak. And this is based off of a story that a client of mine told me. It kind of inspired it. But my knees were weak. I didn't have my strength. I didn't maintain my progress. I allowed it to fall to the wayside. And thus, I ended up falling to the ground. This is not a real story. This is just hypothetical. But I fall to the ground and my knees are not strong enough to help me get up. I can't get up from the ground. So then I find myself embarrassed, and I'm feeling it as I'm speaking it right now. I find myself embarrassed because then I'm on the ground and Kendra's wondering what's wrong. And then she's getting these two young bucks to come help me get up. And that is defeat to me. Like, I feel like I am capable in the present of making healthier choices so that I can prevent that sort of future from happening. So I make sure I take care of my knees, I take care of my hips, and then I take care of all those kind of things. So that's fear setting. So maintenance is progress. If I'm able to maintain the degree or the output in order to prevent a future pain from happening, then I absolutely will. And keep in mind that we're really good at envisioning the past. Like, think of what you did yesterday. I bet you can think of what you did yesterday 100%. Now, the thing is that the past is gone. It's no longer there. So you're visualizing it. You're recreating the thought in your mind, the vision in your mind. We can do that for the opposite direction as well. We can look into the future. We can look forward. We can actually see where we want to go and what we want to do. And our body's going to have a physiological response. Similar to if you think back at a memory that upsets you, you're going to feel upset. How we feel is a symptom of what we think and what we visualize in the stories we tell ourselves. How we feel does not come first. It goes moment or experience, story, feelings. So if we're feeling something, it's because we are thinking of a story that lines up with that. So in my opinion, rather than putting that limited resource, that limited energy towards visualizing a past that's already come and gone, visualize the future or visualize tomorrow that you wish to experience. And be sure to maintain that progress all throughout. All right, another one. This one is from my boy Cassius. He was the first musician. Or no, not the first, but he's definitely the first like professional, like rapper, freaking cool guy, like super, super chill. And it was an absolute pleasure having him on. He was from episode number 39. So he says, the message that I got from that was, enjoy your craft so much, you amaze yourself. Now, this question or this kind of point came from a question that I said and I had to refer to Jack. It was something I heard from Jack White of the White Stripes and his own solo stuff. But when Jack White was talking about writing music, he said that when he goes for walks or and he hears something, there's some songs where he doesn't even view it as his own. And it's not because he thinks it's unimportant. It was the music flowing through him. So the music and the lyrics flew through him. So it wasn't, the way he put it is that it wasn't him writing the songs. It went from somewhere else. So I asked Cassius if he ever experienced something similar where he just heard a tune or heard something and like sat back and thought, wow, I just did that. And yeah, when you do something and it doesn't even seem like it was you, that's pretty freaking cool. It's creating something that you're proud of. And that doesn't have to be external. It could be creating a character or an external world that you're proud of. It could be anything. Whatever that creative outlet, whatever that work of art, quote fingers, I use anything that you can create that comes from what you visualize to your mind to external creations. That's art. You can look at a cup. I have a cup here, and it's a pretty big cup, and it's full of coffee. I'll have something. But this cup is a ready done piece of art. So if you want to ever look at art or you want to feel inspired by someone else's art, look around. There's already art made. And find within yourself that craft, that you become proud of, that you're happy to practice, that pushes you a little outside of your comfort zone. Because when we develop the ability to practice, even if we don't want to, that fast tracks progress like we couldn't even believe. And we have something that's a bonus with that. When you enjoy your craft so much, you amaze yourself, you find yourself in the flow state. It is not a chore. The effort is worthwhile. You see value in the effort, and that's beautiful. I think that that's beautiful. So, continuing on. Leah, episode 36. Met her out on the Toughest Mudder. Absolute rock star. I was super happy to chat with her. So I'm very, very grateful. And she coined a term where she said the thing that stuck out from our conversation is she talked about her anxiety, and that's excitement and anxiety. It is a combination of the two. Anxiety and excitement. Something that's interesting is, like I said before, how we feel comes from the stories. But it's also paying attention to how our body responds. And anxiety or fear, the anticipation of future fear or pain, or fear of our well-being in anticipation, and excitement, happiness, joy, pumped, they have the same physiological responses. Increased heart rate, pupils dilate, heart rate increases, palms get sweaty, you get nervous. Is it nerves or is it excitement? Is it anxiety or is it excitement? What could that excitement be? Could there be growth? Could there be status? Could there be something that is presently seems to be out of your reach, but it's actually just an arm's length away? That could very well be anxiety. That excitement. It's not anxiety for the most part, unless it's the story, of course, and that's completely subjective. But we can also reframe it in the way that works the best for us. So if we're not focusing on the anticipation of future pain, and we actually focus on how excited we are to do the thing, then that's cool. Because keep in mind, we only experience anxiety in advance of the thing. So I think of it like when I went ziplining. When I go ziplining, I'm not a fan of ziplining. Fun fact, I think I have this weird thing where it's like, I'm okay with like fear. I'm okay with heights, but it's just like uncomfortable. It's just one of those things where you just feel a little bit less in control, and there's a lot of things that could go wrong. However, I lean into that fear and have a good time. The only time I experienced the anticipation of future pain or that fear is before I started ziplining, or before the moment. The second that I'm on that wire and I'm going down, I'm excited. It's excitement. I'm no longer anticipating the future pain because there's nothing to anticipate. The next thing is a resolution of what I'm presently experiencing. So I'm not going to be anticipating the future pain of finishing the ziplining. I'm going to think, no. It's like, it's okay. I'm going to make my way there. But it's always the anticipation of, it's never the time of that we experience anxiety or anxiety or excitement or anticipation. So that's one thing that I think is very, very cool. I'm going to toss this one in here as well. This one was Vanessa, or V, and she was Dr. V Van Home, and she was episode number 46, and it kind of ties into it. But her lesson was lean into the fear. And fear is an acronym to me called false evidence appearing real. Lean into that fear, because what you'll discover about yourself is nobody can ever steal that away. It is so important to lean into that fear, to be a friend of the fear, Don't be resentful of the fear. Be infatuated with the fear. Lean into it so that you can learn a little bit about yourself, because you may be surprised by what you learn. And it's doing your future self a disservice if you're not allowing yourself to lean into it. Okay. So that goes into another fear. I guess there is kind of a theme to these, hey? Mukai Moromo, I believe I pronounced his last name right. Episode 34. My favorite lesson from that one, lose graciously. There's always going to be wins and there's always going to be losses. But how we respond or react to either or is up to us. So we can also be, and that means specifically like winning or losing. So I'll talk about losing in a second, but for winning, we can still be resentful of winning, or we can be infatuated with winning. We can feel good about what we did accomplish, or we can beat ourselves thinking, I could have done better. We can choose which perception to go with, right? And that's based off of the expectations and standards that we hold ourselves to. But that's okay. If we go into lose, by losing graciously, we're able to have a quicker bounce back. I find that the times where I did not choose to lose graciously, that was the time where there is the biggest gap in between finishing one thing and then starting to improve. It could be a week, it could be 2 weeks. Nowadays, I'm a little bit more intentional, so it's much shorter. If I drop the ball on something, I lose graciously and I try to decrease that time to recover and get back to it. Because that's the space, that's the time, that's the effort that's going to change that past loss into a future win. So losing graciously, love it. Absolutely love that lesson. And it's something that honestly, it's not that bad losing. You can learn from yourself. And keep in mind that if you're still not trying to win, you're still just you're defaulting to losing, because you're not going to press forward into anything that could completely improve or change the trajectory of your life. So continuing on, my friends, episode 31 with Tim Zim Nikki. This one, I will totally admit that I have referred back to the lesson of the rival and the role model many a times. I don't remember when we had this conversation, but I can let you know that I can tell you that it was, I've said it probably, I don't even know how many times, but I've definitely visualized it, contemplated it a lot, and it sticks out quite a bit. Now, the rival and the role model. This is a very cool one, because we're looking at the inner role model and the inner rival. And the role model is the person that we envision ourselves becoming, the person that we can see ourselves being. That's pretty freaking cool. We see what is there. We see the characteristics, we see the physique, we understand the mentality, we know the stories, we see the accomplishments, the traits, the characteristics, all these things. Like, we can envision our inner role model to such a degree that I believe that we can actually become that person or work towards that person. And Matthew McConaughey had a really cool one. He accepted a Grammy, I believe, and he was talking about how, who is your hero was the question that he was asked. And he said that his hero is him 10 years from now. And then 10 years would go by and his hero would be him from 10 years or 10 years later, right? So our role model is that version of us that's 5 to 10 years ahead of us. And we just got to listen to the role model more often than we listen to the rival. We have that rival that's always hanging out with us. So how do we listen to the role model more often than the rival? By choice and by acknowledging the standards that we hold ourselves to. The rival is going to be that person that's going to want to hold you back, and not for any malicious reason, but because of the insecurity that they are not in control, that they don't want to lose their good friend because their friend has higher standards than the rival. And what we do, because we don't want to upset the people we care for, even if it's our rival, we play down our standards so that we fit in the community, although we have higher standards and a role model that we wish to pursue. So the rival is there just to tempt us, to whisper in our ears, to critique us. Now, the thing with this is that criticism will never go away. The voice telling us that we suck is not going to go away, or that we're not worthy, or that we shouldn't pursue it, or this, that, or the other. Fill in the thing that you repeat on yourself that is preventing you or from progressing or perpetuating past pain into the present. That's listening. When we're perpetuating past pain in the present, we're just listening to the inner rival saying, you know what, maybe just hang out here. Just hang out here. It's okay, man. Like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And that's unfair to us. We are here for a very finite amount of time, and I think it would be in our best interest to not allow the lesser version of us to dictate the trajectory of where that life goes. Because we don't want to get to the end of times or end of our time and find ourselves regretting what we could have done just by making the decision. So I think of it like the crabs in a bucket. So if you're walking down a wharf and you see a fisherman sitting on the dock, putting some crabs into a bucket, and you look down, there's one little crab that's trying to escape. Then you say to the fisherman, excuse me, sir, it looks like one of your crabs is trying to escape. Fisherman responds, don't worry, just watch. The other crabs, those are the rivals. They pull that crab back down into the bucket, right? When we listen to our inner rival, although we may be fighting to get out of the bucket, that rival's always going to try pulling us down. So we have to fight harder to push ourselves toward the role model. Okay. So that was one of my favorite ones. Now, next one. This is my buddy Steve Romanek. I believe I pronounced his name right. Pretty sure. Episode 38. Once again, kind of on a long theme, but become a vehicle of service. Abundant living involves some form of service of good. There is a give before there is a receive. And I understand that people are fearful of giving abundance and giving love, giving kindness, giving affection, because that may not be reciprocated. And my argument or my rebuttal would be, who cares if it's not reciprocated? It's not that important. There doesn't have to be a give and a take. There could always just be a give, because giving also gets us feeling good. So we can selfishly give consciously, as long as it's within our alignment and as long as we are feeling that fulfillment and joy, and we are doing it from a place of choice, not from a place of obligation, we're going to feel so much better. And we are a vehicle of service. That could be as simple as being supportive. That could be as simple as maybe asking a loved one questions as to why is it that, or how can you support them in what they're doing, right? So that's a really simple way of being able to, a really simple way of being of service is to help support. It only takes time. You don't have to give out anything else. Time is the most valuable thing, and where our time goes is the thing that we care the most about. It is our highest priority value, because time is so valuable. So when we can look at what we do in a day, then we can extrapolate that. What do we do over the course of a week? We are able to then see what gets the most time. Where do we allot most of our time? Because that is the most important thing. And if that important thing is from a place of abundance, from a place of infatuation, from a place of help, care, support, kindness, then we are helping others perpetuate those forward. Oftentimes, we just have to be the person first in order to give that first. And I think that giving works inside first. Continue to be kind to the self, because the self, at the end of our days, is who we are left with. And if we don't like ourselves, then we're going to not live a very fulfilling life and joyful life. So if we get along with ourselves, when we understand ourselves, when we can speak to ourselves in a way that's not criticism or resentment, when we can go from a place of infatuation, love, and support, then we are able to press forward and become better human beings from that. Going into the next one. Also, I hope you're enjoying this. These are kind of fun. I really like going through these little lessons. There are a ton more that I have. I make a lot of notes on the lessons, but yeah, this is a good time. So I'm really, really digging it. Going into the next one, episode number 33. This had my buddy Darren Ellis out of New Zealand. I almost said Australia, but it was New Zealand. And he says that average is not the enemy. We always try to get the best of the best or whatever. Like we're always trying, we have such crazy standards and expectations that we can oftentimes find ourselves chasing the things that we don't care about. And I think it's really interesting because I actually refer to myself as an average person just trying to do extraordinary things. Like that is the standard that I hold myself to. And that is what I envision for my role model for my future. But I live a pretty average life. My day-to-day life, unless there's exceptions, it's really chill. It's getting up, coffee, journaling, physical activity, connecting, creation, contribution. Like it's really simple things because I find that I get the most joy and fulfillment. But many would look at it as an average life. Isn't that boring? Well, yeah, it is. It's not. I wouldn't even say it's boring because in my mind, for the standard that I hold myself, winners don't get bored of winning. And I am winning on a day-to-day basis. And that is in alignment with the standards that I set for myself and the person that I want to become. And that brings me great joy, knowing that what I do today is going to have a positive contribution on the person I am tomorrow. Because today is meant to prepare for tomorrow. Today is not to wallow in how we are assholes to ourselves from yesterday. At least that's my mind. But yeah, average, keeping things chill, keeping things manageable, not keeping up with the Joneses. You don't have to get things or buy things or do things that you don't want to do or just because you feel obligated to do because of friends, family, so on and so forth. You can just say no. And then you can kind of just, I don't know, hunker down and just really focus on yourself, focus on having a simple life, not a boring life, but a simple life where things are pretty consistent. There's less chaos. And when we impose our own order on the perceived chaos, we have so much more control over how the trajectory of our life is. And people can support that or not, and that's on them. And that's not within their control, though. Our life, our day is based on us. And then what is important to us, we work with that as well. So average is not the enemy. You don't have to have an exciting life to live an exciting life. It's kind of interesting. This one's one of my favorite ones as well. This is my buddy Brian Nijelski from episode 23. And he says, to achieve fuck you independence. Yes, achieve fuck you independence. Now, autonomy. When I hear fuck you independence, that's the word that comes to mind. Autonomy is the ability to depend on the self. I depend on me. You depend on you. We find ourselves depending on the outside world. If we find ourselves depending on the outside world, circumstances, people, waiting for the perfect time to experience the life that we want, then we are dependent on what is outside of our control. What we depend on makes the rules. So if we are able to achieve fuck you independence, where we achieve a level of autonomy that we can depend on ourselves, then we make the rules. We don't want others. And if we don't make the rules for ourselves, others and external circumstances are going to make the rules for us, and they may not have our best interests at heart. Okay? We have our best interests at heart. We want to survive. We want to take care of ourselves. And we got to take care of ourselves first, because if we don't, then we're going to be useless to others, in my opinion. So, yeah, we got to become in charge of ourselves to have that independence. What is it that we depend on? What is the list? What is the list of things that we depend on? Do we have to depend on so many things outside of our control? What is within our control? How can we increase that in a manageable, reasonable manner? without setting unrealistic expectations that the whole world has to cater to our perception, our subjective perception of the world. That's silly. Don't want to do that because that's also out of our control. The world has been around long before us, and the world's going to be around long after us. And even if it's not around long after us, we're going to kick the bucket well before, hopefully, knock on wood, anything happens. Okay. So when we achieve that fuck you independence, we are coming from a place of authority over ourselves. We are becoming autonomous. We have power over what shapes our reality and how we perceive things. So that was a lesson on that one. Going on, we got from episode number 45, Lacey Iskra. And she has a term of POS anxiety, piece of shit anxiety. Now, our feels are there to guide us back on track. They're not there to harm us. They're not there to get us feeling shitty about ourselves or happy about ourselves. Our feelings are there to let us know that we are a little off kilter, that if we're walking on a beam, we're shaking a little bit to the left or to the right. We can bring ourselves back. So when she talked about her piece of shit and anxiety, I actually call it more of a compass of incongruence. So when we are incongruent, we feel anxious. So if our body's doing one thing, if our actions and our behaviors doing one thing and our thoughts are doing another, we are going to find anxiety because there's a misalignment. There's an incongruence. One thing is doing one thing and the other is doing the other. I'm going to use exercise as an example. We want to exercise and we have the intention of dialing in our health and our fitness so that we can show up better for the people around us and ultimately ourselves. But our behaviors are not matching that. We find ourselves repeating the same process of indulging in or mindlessly indulging in the activities that are not helping us in our health and fitness. And mindlessly in the sense of habitual. It's something that we don't need to think about doing because it's on autopilot. So we have to interject logic between stimulus and response or reaction. So what we end up doing oftentimes is perpetuating that pain forward. And we find ourselves consistently miserable when coincidentally we are consistently not making progress. And we are saying that we want to make progress. So this form of anxiety works as a compass. It works as a compass to put us back on track, to understand that our subconscious is trying to tell us something that we're just not consciously aware of, or we are aware of it and we are consciously pushing to the side and ignoring it. Because there's only ever 5 different things that we can do. We can choose to resolve, reframe, tolerate, ignore, or aggravate. And I call that a spectrum from good decisions or smart decisions to dumb decisions. I call it the 5 threads of time. And so if we are behaving in a way that's contradicting our thoughts, then we're going to experience anxiety. That's a good thing because then we know, okay, what we're doing is not what we want to do or should be doing or could be doing to get to where we want to go. How do we bring that back to a point where there is no longer anxiety or a piece of shit anxiety where we are being pieces of shit to ourselves by doing the opposite of what we want to do for whatever external reason or internal reason that we give ourselves permission to use in order to perpetuate that past pain into the present. So, in what way am I off track and how can I get back to congruence is a great reflection to have while going for a walk and thinking about the times that you're really wound up and you're feeling anxious. Next one. Okay, we got 2 more, folks. We got 2 more for this episode. Once again, thank you so much for being here. I'm really, really pumped. So this episode from episode number 26, Johnny Perry, the lesson that he said was overcoming the truth in the mirror. Awesome. He was referring to a story where he was not in the best shape and he was aware of it. And he just looked in the mirror and he was just done. He didn't want to be where he was anymore. And we can look in the mirror and we can try to deny what we see, but what we see is in response to what we do. So what we can find is when we look in the mirror, we know what's up. Do we experience infatuation or resentment when we look in this mirror? Are we treating the person in the mirror with kindness and compassion, or are we an asshole to that person? And then from there, we choose which direction and trajectory we want to go. Because no matter how you may feel in this moment, the fact of the matter is that you can choose differently. You don't have to feel happy to be happy. You can feel sorrow, but be joyful. And the idea that I like to think of is when a good friend of yours, a close friend of yours, is moving away to a different city, for example, and they tell you, I'm moving away. You're not going to get to spend time with them. So you're going to feel yucky. It's going to not feel nice. It's going to feel, shit, that sucks. But how do we choose to respond and behave? We are joyful. We are being joyful that they are doing something that is in alignment with them, that they wish to do. We are supportive. We are treating them with compassion and kindness. We can do the same thing for ourselves. So when we look in the mirror, we may see something and feel something, but we can choose to say something and be something different. We don't have to continue the same things that we've always done in order to perpetuate getting the same outcomes that we've always gotten. That's silly. Unless you're really happy with the trajectory that you're going on, absolutely keep going with it. I love it. Keep it up. Can't get enough. Can't get enough. I want you to be the absolute best version of you. I want you to not only be the role model for yourself, but the role models for others around you and the people you care for. There's no greater gift. There's no greater gift than the people around you getting to see and be around the best of you. So, looking in the mirror, are you being an asshole to yourself, or are you treating yourself with kindness and compassion? What's the trajectory? Where are we going? What is that? What's happening right now? Is it going in a direction that you wish to have it, or do you wish to have a different one? What can you do in the time? Now, keep in mind, everything's going to be hard. But if you expect it to be hard, and when it becomes hard, you already expected it. So you can just push through it. You don't have to. It's not a surprise that things are difficult. Why do you? That's why it's so few and far between that people try to push themselves to become, not even push themselves, but choose to embody the person they wish to become, which brings the outcome closer to them faster. So, overcoming the truth in the mirror. Are you there as an asshole, or are you there as a compassionate compatriot? I think I used that word in the right way. And then, on the note of that visualization, Ryan Sprague, the cannabis coach himself, episode number 47, make life a psychedelic experience. That is a really freaking cool idea. So he's a cannabis coach. He helps people integrate cannabis into their life rather than being slaves to it. Because keep in mind that whatever the thing may be, if we desire it, and if our inner tantruming toddler has a hissy fit anytime we can't get it in the short term, then we no longer are setting the rules. So he goes through and he helps folks integrate cannabis into their into their well-being and their life, and helps through a process of growing plants as well. So it's kind of cool. Anyways, make life a psychedelic experience. He was talking about how he's gotten to the point where he is so kind of dialed in, where life itself is a psychedelic experience. This is something that's so beautiful, because keep this in mind. The odds of you or I becoming a human being is 400 trillion to 1. 400 trillion to 1. Now think about that. If your parents were 60 seconds off, right? So this is just one example. If your parents were 60 seconds off and they never met, then you probably wouldn't exist, right? Now, that's just one moment. Now take everything that had to happen from the beginning and conception of existence all the way up until now, all of those things, everything had to happen the way it happened in order for you to exist here and now. That's trippy. And that's life. That's a life. That's experiencing life as a psychedelic experience where there's never going to be anyone like yourself. There's never going to be another me. We are who we are and who we choose to be. But we have to be responsible with the finite amount of time that we get. So why not try bringing that experience, elevating that experience by living a life of abundance, by living a life of kindness, by living a life of compassion, by challenging the thoughts and feelings and beliefs of our friends, of our family, rather than enable them to continue doing what they're doing or support them into continuing what they're doing. There's a lot of really cool opportunities and options and things that we can all do. And I find that there's just things, we overcomplicate things and we can make them simple. And the choice is to make it simple and live that life. And I want you to live a limitless life as well. So with that being said, before I'm tangenting too much, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. You are a part of this Limitless Life community. You are listening to a podcast with the intention of providing kindness and abundance to more by exposing folks to different thoughts, beliefs, ways of thinking, not to judge, but to kind of reflect on how we interact with the world by understanding how others interact with the world. That's a pretty cool place to be. So I just want to say thank you very much for being here. Thank you for this 50th episode. If you're listening, be sure to share it out. That would be awesome. And just for the sake of funness, the 2 questions that I ask my guests, I will answer every 50 episodes, actually. I think that's kind of cool. And it might change over time, but we'll see. So I'm on my deathbed, surrounded by the people that I care for. What is the piece of advice that I wish to pass on? I would say that if I was hanging out and there's the people that I really care for and they're just chilling with me, that the piece of advice would be to keep up the kindness, which I've been saying a bunch today, so it's definitely fresh in my mind. To keep up the kindness, to live abundantly, to live in a way that is in alignment with your role model rather than your rival, to remember that there's a finite amount of time and we get to choose what we do with that time. There is more within our control than we anticipate or that we think or believe or we perceive. So that would be at least today's answer to that question. I'm excited to see how it changes. And then the second question, the best version of me is sitting right next to me. What piece of advice does he give me for this season of life? The lesson that I would, or the role model, the best version of me is honestly saying that there is, it's going to be all good. One thing is that it's going to be all good. And then the second thing is to manage the speed wobble. And when I say managing the speed wobble, I mean, there's a little bit of a speed wobble, on a bike where you have the speed wobble and it's like, whoa, and the wheel starts going. But I watched this video once and it was like a Tour de France guy and he was going and he was on the bike and he had a speed wobble, but he was controlling it. So he had that balance between top speed and lack of control. So it was a cool combination of order and chaos being imposed at the same time, and they were finding a synchronicity. There was a common denominator, and it was really cool control that the biker had. But he was going fast, but was managing that speed wobble, and that would be the lesson or the piece of advice that the best version of me would be saying right now is manage that speed wobble, take a deep breath, zoom out if you need to, but make sure that you're always in alignment of the trajectory to get me here. So I'm thinking future tense. So outside of that, once again, thank you very much for being a part of the 50th episode, for being a part of this community. I appreciate you a ton. And that's what I've got for you in today's episode. So if you can, by all means, please, if you love today's episode, please do me a favor right now. Share it on your Instagram stories and tag me with the handle @DapperDudeKyle. That is one of the ways that we grow. And until next time, be kind. And I hope your day treats you as good as you look.